Welcome to Disrupted Science, the occasional conversation between the authors of the upcoming book, How the Internet Disrupted Science. I'm Kent Anderson here with my co-author, Joy Moore, and we're recording this on Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025. Hey, Joy.
Hey Kent, how you doing?
I'm okay. I want to start out by acknowledging the passing of Ozzy Osbourne, which,
Hmm.
it's sad, it's inevitable, of course. But he also got to go out after his major tribute concert, which everybody put together in his honor, potentially, seeing that the end was near for him after an accident and other things, but also perhaps I think a lot of us have experienced with friends and family who are nearing the end of life, is that once they have some release point, they can let go. And so it seemed like maybe that was part of the gift that the music community gave him, was permission to to shuffle off this mortal coil in style. And so,
Hmm.
Ozzy, thank you for everything. We love your music, and we will miss you. Um, but you gave us a lot.
Definitely. Yeah, when I heard about that, what it was only less than 2 weeks ago that they did
Yeah,
it.
yep, yep.
Yeah, and it made me think of the big Foo Fighters one that they did a few years ago,
For Taylor Hawkins.
for Taylor, and thinking how sad that was in a way
Yep,
that everyone came together after he was gone.
yep,
And I'm so happy that Ozzy got to experience that for himself.
yep, absolutely. And speaking of music, you may notice we have new music transitions. Those are provided by a music friend of the pod named Lucas, and his brand is called Provoke the Truth. And it's a music brand you should check out. If you are somewhere in the spectrum between Carlos Santana and drop D metal, you will like Lucas's music. And the reason, part of it, I love his music. He's a great player, sensational music teacher as well. But also just his brand and his spirit behind Provoke the Truth just fits this podcast and disrupted science and everything we're about too. So thanks, Lucas. You'll notice the new music stings, and I will try to remember to put a link in the show notes. If not, you can find Provoke the Truth on all the socials, on YouTube and everywhere else. And and all his albums that he cuts sell out immediately. So if you see a new one announced, hop on it. All right.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Lucas.
All right, so we're going to dive into the topic of the week, which is we're calling the Farm Report.
A lot of growth, a lot of bad growth.
Yeah, a lot of bad things are happening to farmers, which isn't new, it turns out. So one of the benefits of writing the Geyser consistently, and part of the reason I do it so consistently, is because you get to gather receipts. And back in 2019, the Trump administration was going after the U.S. Department of Agriculture, their researchers, and farm funding as well. So they were trying to quash research. They were trying to get rid of anything having to do with climate change, of course. They were, trying to have gag orders on scientists, and they were just doing everything insidiously like they are now, right? One thing they were trying to do was to get the Economic Research Service of the USDA, which keeps track of farm income, get them to move to Kansas City, Missouri, or be fired. So that was their move at that point. There was no office there at the time, and
Had they been in DC
yeah,
or
they'd been in DC
before?
forever, right?
So this is what the quiet firing is. Say that you have to go back to the office and then move the office to Missouri.
Exactly.
Okay.
If the mountain and Muhammad are together and you want Muhammad to have a problem, you just move the mountain, I guess. I don't know. But this is back in 2019, and when that plan was announced, Sonny Perdue, who I have many comments on generally, but I think he was a congressman from Georgia and just a general bad person. But he was the USDA secretary at the time. And when it was announced, the USDA employees turned their backs on him. And that was what was going on back then. They also cut it was going to cost taxpayers $83 to $182 million to make that move. And there was no reason to make it other than to force people out. So this is something that's been going on for a long time. But now what the USDA is up to is cutting 15,000 USDA employees. That's how many have been cut since March. They say they're eliminating wasteful spending, but most of those positions were the ones that actually interacted with farms and farmers to support them and give them what they needed. And so, it's just a more damage to American agriculture, which is, a major export for the nation. And it makes no economic sense. It makes no scientific sense. And we'll talk a little bit later about how they're meddling in agricultural science as well. But that's just a little bit of context that this is a go-to move for the Trump administration, for MAGA. They say they support farmers, they pay lip service to it, but in their actions, what they do is they cut budgets, and they cut employees, and they cut research, and they undermine the American heartland. So, but there are other ways to do it too, right? So
they're undermining the American heartland in terms of the jobs, but just the combination, the 1-2 punch of attacking medicine and food,
right,
is about as basically evil as you can get.
Yep.
And the math can't even work
Nope.
on the broad scale.
No,
I don't even know.
Yeah, it's terrible. But there's also some funny business going on in agricultural science, and you talked about this this week, and about famously about fake basil.
Actually, the basil was real. It's just they bought it at Home Depot. So yeah, I was thinking about, it started with Jeffrey Epstein, and I wrote about this the other day. And with all the talk about, releasing the file and who's in the file and what does it mean to be guilty by association, people who were invited or who were running in circles with him, who should be shamed, and, all of this stuff. And in terms of if you were there, but you didn't know what was going on and you didn't participate in it, what does that say about you as a person? And so that made me think, and knowing a little bit, but not very much. I only knew the superficial, what was in the headlines about Epstein and his relationships with certain academics and academic institutions, as well as, rubbing shoulders with a lot of people that we consider some of our best and brightest. I thought, well, there's got to be some residual evidence of money coming through his organization or through his associations in terms of papers, whether, paying for labs or paying for fees or whatever. Because when you're talking about money and science, the easiest way to follow the trail is through the papers. Because every paper has who the authors are, where they work, and who gave them money. And if you can triangulate, you can figure out a lot of things. So I went to the library, and I wrote about that experience this morning. But I went to the library trying to see what I could find in terms of, I thought that there was so much money that I would have to start looking up at lots of papers, but I actually stopped at the first one that I found because it was retracted.
That'll stop.
And and I was like, oh no. I wasn't planning on talking about retractions. But it actually just kind of filled out the whole story of Epstein's involvement with the MIT Media Lab and Joy Ito and the group there. And it resurfaced a story that probably would have, everyone has probably forgotten about it by now, is that during that time, there was a group called the Open Ag Initiative, and they were experimenting using AI and equipment to calibrate conditions to optimizing growth of plants. And they focused on basil. And it was a big splash. And if you look it up, there's videos, they're showing them walking through their facilities and things like that. And this is going to be the future of food. And this is going to be help us to grow food in outer space. And
Yeah,
it's
because
going to,
outer space. I mean, they had an outer space flavored Coca-Cola a few years ago because they'd done a chemical analysis, like a mass spec analysis of space chemistry, and they had a Coke. And I just wonder how it would go with basil. Because basil is such a great condiment that you can just, maybe just crush up, tear up a few leaves into your Coke and strain
yeah.
them out, and then you might get space basil Coke, margarita Coke. I don't know what it is, but
No, that's like the worst mojito I ever heard of.
space Coke and basil and AI basil.
AI basil. Yeah, it didn't occur to me after thinking about this for a few days. It's like, wait a second, this isn't even food. This is a garnish. Ugh. So anyway, this paper was retracted a couple years after it was published in PLOS One, and so then I just started clicking around and seeing, okay, well, maybe it was retracted and nothing has ever come of it, but of course something did come of it, and I found a whole. There were 33 papers who cited it directly, and what was really annoying and disturbing is that half of them cited it after it was retracted. So, I'm not a mind reader or super sleuth by any stretch of the imagination. But if you're preparing a manuscript and you're putting your reference list together, the only way to cite a retracted paper means that you didn't even bother to look it up. I mean, it's open access as you can get.
Right, right. Well, but also it can be promulgated in a bunch of different places that don't carry retraction notices, right? Maybe they got it off of Sci-Hub or ResearchGate or wherever.
Right, but that still means they didn't click on it and go to the PLOS website where it says all over it, this thing is dirty, dirty done.
Yeah, yeah. But that gets into kind of the automated box of confusion that we have where once a paper's published, it loses its heritage in a way. It just goes feral out on the web, and you lose track of, it forgets where its home was and forgets who, its manners and all of that.
And the point of me going through all these references and I actually got all 33 of these papers and looked at them and looked at who the authors were, where they worked, and where their funding was. And I didn't read all the papers in detail. I have no idea if these papers are good papers or not.
Right.
I'm not that's not my point of and certainly not to say that they're all bad science, because they might not be. But what it does show is how quickly and how widespread all of this information gets populated and linked together, but also to focus on a high profile retraction, and say, well, those authors, turns out, we exposed them for being frauds, and everybody move on. There's a whole host of people downstream who are using this information, and they're using it for all sorts of different reasons. And that's something that I think we need to talk about a little bit more, is each paper, the motivations of those authors are different. I mean, some of them could fall into like-minded buckets, but we don't know why they included this citation. And some of them, because of the nature of the content that spanned both agriculture and AI machine learning, these concepts have been picked up within the search engines and the indexing services to be displayed as related content across many, many disciplines.
Right.
There's even some in there about gender. And, you know,
Well, it also
so
speaks
that,
to a little bit about our screening of those papers, right? The half that cited it after it had been retracted, because supposedly there are systems that are supposed to flag those to editorial assistants and editors and say, some of these citations have been retracted. And, again, you don't know the publication timelines, at what point during the submission and review process those screens are run, and whether there was some lag or latency between retraction so yeah, the confusion is it's a big ball of confusion, right?
yeah.
It's
And
kind
it,
of all encompassing.
yeah. And what do you do if, say, for instance, there was a screener at the typesetting phase,
Right.
right, where everything's all signed off, and then just the day before it had been retracted, and as they were finalizing the reference formats and doing all the links and the references, there was a flag that came up. I could easily see that being part of the workflow. Well, then what do you do?
Right.
This paper has been accepted on all the merits except for one bad reference.
Right.
Do you?
Right. Well, the whole story here is kind of about guilt by association, right? So you've got all the questions around Jeffrey Epstein and all of that are guilt by association. And the person who's most panicked in that political realm is the person with the most associations with him of anybody that we know of. And but then you have these papers that are citing, if a paper cites a retracted paper that was based on bad data or incomplete data, and there's can be some reasonable expectation that the author should have known that and reacted responsibly to that, not cited it, or how they cite it. It was another question, whether they cited it as this paper was retracted and, et cetera.
Yeah.
But you have to pause and take a look. But one of your points is also the emphasis on speed is so great that you just wonder how many shortcuts are taken or how much screening is, really done. And is it done just once and kind of that's it, because nobody worries about it getting out at the end of the day, because who cares? We just are trying to get papers out, So yeah, lots of questions around this kind of stuff.
So it was very interesting.
And you also got
journey.
to learn about air conditioning at a library and
At the
single
library.
sign-on.
Single sign-on, yeah. So I went. So I live here in Williamsburg, which is where I went to college, and I'm able to use the library there. And I discovered that when we were doing research for the book, which was great because I actually went into the stacks and checked out books, and I used all the databases to help me find which books I wanted to read.
Yeah.
But it was also super helpful because they have so many databases that I got into all the holdings for the library and the business school and others. And then as I was looking into some more of what's going on in the scientific literature, I could use Scopus. But I went on Friday morning to work on this, and there was no parking. The air conditioning was out. I was really the only one there, except for the poor summer interns.
Yep.
And then just, the single sign-on wasn't working, and I needed to try to troubleshoot. And anyway, they set me up with a terminal hardwired into the wall and gave me a thumb drive
How
to
old
say,
school. I love it.
It was great. So I downloaded it all to my thumb drive. I came home and I printed it out and I marked it up and I added it with a calculator and a pencil because also don't understand how to use whatever the heck it is that used to be Excel.
Yeah, it's too smart now. It's always suggesting things or pre-populating cells, and you're like, "What did you just do? That's not right." Yeah. I mean, we're fighting. It's funny how often we fight tech now. Like I find myself, fighting spell check, fighting pre-populated assumptions, turning off AI forced down our throats. It's like, can we just stop? Can you make tools for me instead of trying to make tools that kind of govern me?
Right. And even like the ones, because we might have talked about this before, but Perplexity is good in that they give the citations more,
right.
but then you have to fact check the AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I talked about the acronym GBD. You know, it can really.
Well, yesterday I did that count
it
of
up.
states we were talking about for the one other thing.
Oh yeah.
And I came up with a number that didn't agree with what the organization, in this case it was Spark, they said we were in 45 states in a press release you talk about today, or in an RFI response that you talked about in today's post. And then I went out and copied out their membership and put it into ChatGPT, and I said, how many states are mentioned in this? And it said 46, and it didn't agree with what Spark itself said. And it was issuing corrections to itself during the process. And so I was like, okay, 46. I texted you. I'm like, okay, 46 looks like, and here are the 4 that are not. And then later in the day, I'm like, I don't trust that. So I actually had to go through and do it by hand, and it was correct, but I didn't trust it. And that's, this gets back to the whole issue of trust, because you can't trust these things. And one of the great lines in Adam Becker's book is, because he talks about how the architecture of tokenized LLMs is inference through and through. So you can't say that when it gets something wrong, it's hallucinating, because everything it's doing is a hallucination. It has no basis in reality. And so it's just very, they're trying to ingest those things now, because ChatGPT in that state issue said, okay, I have checked this list of states. And okay, but I still didn't trust it. So yeah, it's interesting. These tools are kind of crazy making. And you found them a kind of sidecard to a lot of the systems you were using at the library, right?
Yeah, there's every opportunity to say, do you want me to help you with that? I was like, if you knew what I was doing, you would back off right now.
I'm coming for you.
Stop trying to help me. But the other and some of the kind of more fundamental problems I think that we have is not that that articles are fabricated, it's that they're misinterpreted, and
Yes.
that these systems are inferring things that are there,
Right.
but not in the context or for the audience to whom they were intended.
Right. Or they tend to, one of the research that I've seen is they tend to make sweeping generalizations instead of modest claims, and they run a little bit florid, right? They try to make it sexy. They try to make it like a hot topic or a big finding, and it's like, they don't have the context to say, here's an interesting addition to the broader literature on this topic that talks about one specific little thing that you may find somewhat useful if you do this very specific kind of lab intervention. They don't know that kind of world.
Well, and the Maha report references are rife with that. And one just example that I found particularly heartbreaking is that they, when they were citing the fact that the peer review system is broken in scholarly publishing, they actually say that in the Maha report. I looked at the citation, and it was by an editorial by the editor-in-chief of a journal that I used to work for. And he was talking about launching their new journal, open access, and trying out a new double-blind peer review. I think that what it is, either double-blind or double open. I can't remember.
Right.
But they picked that particular article from this journal to make the sweeping statement that peer review is broken, and they cited him by name, saying, and if you need to, he's the one who said this is it.
Right.
And it's one after the other. It's
Right.
not
It's
that
not what it was
all the
there.
content is, it's when you take it out of context and specifically you take it away from the audience that it's intended for, this is what you get.
Yep, absolutely. So thanks for doing all that. I know it was quite a journey last Friday going to the library in the heat and humidity of Virginia.
I thought I was going to be taking the afternoon off to play pickleball, and instead I was in the sweaty library.
You still got to play pickleball though, didn't you?
I did over the weekend. I
Well,
took a clinic,
ooh,
so my serve is improved. That's another example. They offer AI analysis of your game, and I said I don't want to do that. I sat with a 15-year-old kid who's an amateur on the amateur pro tour,
yeah,
and he just said, "Oh, just do that." Boom,
yeah. There you go.
way better.
Real intelligence wins again. Yeah. All right, but there's more nonsense, right, going on.
Yeah. So what else is going on the farm?
I feel terrible. I was just in Ohio, and one interesting trivia thing I did learn this week though is that a lot of the humidity in the summer that we experience is actually from the heartland, all the plants breathing out the water that they've ingested. So it's corn sweat essentially and soybean sweat.
That's
So
the grossest thing.
well,
You said
it's
that. I was like,
yeah, it's these
oh.
clouds of water coming out of the Great Plains that are filling up the sky. So then we get all the humidity, which also explains why there's less humidity in the West, right? So
Oh, because it
as it comes from the Midwest, it's like
and
the
it
dust.
all comes.
The Dust Bowl has become the moisture bowl, I guess.
Yeah,
So
it all comes to Williamsburg, Virginia. Oof.
on a Friday at the library. Well, so the whole litany of things that I can't go through everything, but we all saw I think USDA was one of the first government agencies that experienced mass journal cancellations. The U.S. Agricultural Library canceled tons of subscriptions back in when was that? Back in March. So that was one of the first experiences we had with what was Doge at the time, which you don't hear much about anymore, interestingly, but they certainly did their damage. And then Brooke Rollins.
wanna-
Oh, go ahead.
Before you get on to her, I had an idea around journal cancellations and the automated box of confusion. And knowing some of the tools that are in that toolkit, I was thinking that publishers whose journals have been canceled can go and do a little Rickroll from PubMed or other government databases to their platforms. Because you're going to have your header files have been in there for decades. So your publications are still linked from the government to your platform. It's just that government employees who are coming through are not going to have that seamless access anymore because they've canceled their subscriptions.
Right.
But you could put a little interstitial between that link out and your platform and give them a little never going to give you up message.
Never going to let you down.
Never going to let you down. And right now, give us your email address. Tell us who you are, your personal email
Right,
address,
and
and
you
we'll
get
give
free access.
we'll give you a gift,
Yeah.
a thoughtful gift. And you can do it for a day, a week, a month, a year, a paper, share with a friend,
Right.
things like that.
Yeah, as long as
So-
needed, right? I think that's a great
Yep.
idea. Yeah, I mean, you're not making any more money from this group of people, but you can definitely support science with a nice Rickroll interstitial. I like that idea. Nice. All right, so Brooke Rollins is the current secretary of the USDA, and she actually comes from farm country, but she's also a dyed-in-the-wool MAGA person. Interestingly, though, and she's big into this idea of biblical darkness, which is awesome.
What?
Yeah, so she's one of those like end of days, but she's really I did some research last
Is
night.
Is she like the one who, when they were talking about Medicaid, just said we're all going to die anyway? Get over it.
Joni, whatever her name is, Ernst. Yeah, she's a class act. I think that was who it was. But no, she's not that bad. She's actually, I think, she's a real mixed bag from what I can see. So she's doing a lot of things that I wouldn't say help farmers or help agricultural research or our food supply or the world's food supply. But she's also done a lot of things to blunt the worst tendencies of the Trump administration. So she actually got some bird flu interventions in place and helped cull and vaccinate various flocks that were at risk at the time. She got Trump to back off on some of the ICE detentions of migrant farm workers and others, and things like that. But she's also so she's walking a tightrope, essentially. It sounds like, and I think that is what it is. I don't think it. I think she should not walk that tightrope, but at least she's walking the tightrope. She's not fully dyed in the wool, but. And so the report card from the farmers themselves is mixed. You know, they are watching her carefully. One thing I learned from traveling to the Midwest last spring is that the farm report is a great tool that all the farmers use, and they are no-nonsense people. So I'm sure they're all over this in a way that you and I can't be, because we also don't get the farm report in Massachusetts. I don't know if you guys get it on a cable channel or anything there. And then they break it up on YouTube, so it's hard to watch. But anyhow.
No, I'll ask around. Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet we do.
But one of the big things for scientific publishers is that they issued, what was the date on this? They issued it on July 8th. America First Memorandum for USDA Arrangements and Research Security. And it's one of the craziest documents you will ever read. It's so paranoid and jingoistic.
Cuckoo bananas. It's like the person who typed it, I'm concerned about. Like,
this is my highlighting of it. I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it's. I mean, I just was going through exclamation points, paranoid. What bad alliteration, like you produce the food, fuel, and fiber on which what are hemp and cotton? You know, the fuel? What's the fuel exactly? Like ethanol? I mean, they're just alliteration is hilarious, but and they don't paginate it. So it's not paginated, so I can't say which I find is a sign of unprofessional authorship. But anyhow, or production.
That's the same thing my mom said when I had her read our intro to our book. She's like, well, I don't really know what it's about, but you don't have page numbers, so you might want to do that.
I'm down. Your mom and I would agree on that, and we did put them in.
We did.
Mrs. Mom.
The book will have page numbers.
But so there's all this weird stuff in there. So a few things to call out. They keep talking about countries of concern. Right. So researchers and USDA employees shouldn't participate in activities with individuals from countries of concern. But you dig into that, and in May, they created a list of countries of concern that isn't a list. It's a moving target. It basically says this list of countries of concern can be whatever we decide it is at the time. It used to be that the Secretary of State issued a list of countries of concern based on voting rights or civil rights violations or things like that, but they changed. It looks like they changed it, so it's simply that the list of countries of concern will be determined by the director, by the secretary, and it's not enumerated, so nobody knows what that list is. So that's an issue.
And is it a specific list for this purpose, or is there overarching? What does country of concern denomination?
It's hard
mean?
to say. They cite CFR 231.102, and when I looked it up, it was just countries of concern will be determined by the director or secretary at the time needed, or something like that. It's just this kind of blanket. Yeah. You don't. Good luck. Good luck getting it right. Yeah. And then they keep talking about any foreign person or entity or any U.S. citizen or entity subject to foreign ownership, control, or influence. Do they know Unilever and Nestle and companies like that are kind of a big deal in food? And then they talk about foreign adversaries, and what's that? Exactly. Not is El Salvador one? Some people would say yes. Some people would say no. So anyhow, it's crazy. But the big takeaway is the last bullet on Section C. authoring or co-authoring a scholarly publication in their official capacity, along with a foreign national, without a USDA-approved arrangement in place prior to the initial drafting or editing of any manuscript is something they're now prohibiting. And from what I've heard from people who know people in the USDA, that this has had a huge chilling effect on researchers. Everybody's scrambling to cover their butts and looking at all of their arrangements and figuring out what they can do. The problem is that the there are already works in progress. There are already things that are have been submitted, have been taken care of. And if this deprives authorship for legitimate authors in order to get the research out, and those authors agree to that, then, I mean, what an infringement on academic freedom, research integrity, individual liberties, whether they're U.S. citizens or not. There's a broader scientific community, I hate to tell the U.S. government and the USDA, that supersedes you, actually. That's more important than you, because science is not a nationalistic endeavor. It's a universal endeavor. So
you cannot own ideas, thoughts, outcomes.
Or you
theories,
can't tell people from other countries
claims.
that they can't be authors on papers, that they've contributed to, just because you funded, and in whole or in part, some of the research, or because some of your employees participated in it. So it's crazy. It's counterproductive. It's against scientific norms, academic freedom, scientific culture, editorial integrity. Everything. It flies in the face of everything. But if you read it, I think I put a link to it on the Geyser yesterday. And if you want to read crazy, America First, jingoistic, paranoid language, and I'm with Joy, I'm kind of concerned for the person who had to type this, and I hope they were day drinking when they did, because it would make it go down easier. But it's a great example in a way. It's great, terrible example.
Well, it's so obvious. It's the same thing with the letter that Spark sent to the two lawmakers. This is language that is crafted in a different kind of a factory farm of policy wonks and propaganda. This is not serious language.
Right.
And the either the elected or appointed officials who are on the receiving end of this information will look at it and say, "Oh, geez, this looks important. Okay," and put it out, or their staffers read it. But more than likely, ChatGPT reads it and said, "This is the truth."
Yeah.
Now.
Right. Yeah, and you made a really interesting point, because I linked out in 2012. I wrote a post that keeps surfacing again and again with these yahoos, because they keep kind of circling this idea, which was an April Fool's post, where I proposed the idea that yes, taxpayer-funded research, we should go all the way with that and only make it available to the taxpayers who were paying taxes at the time that it was funded, or that their taxes actually fed into it. And so, there were jokes about Willie Nelson and how his tax status was always on his mind, and how whether there was a controversy about whether the rich should have more access because they paid more in taxes, or less access because they paid a lower rate, and what happens to all that kind of stuff. So if you actually take this to the absurd level, but you noted in our exchange that, what? ChatGPT doesn't know that's parody.
Yeah.
They've ingested this whole joke, and you wonder, that's an angle that I think I really want to think about at some point, or get some comedians or somebody who does comic analysis to figure that out. How much of ChatGPT is just a computer that doesn't know we were just kidding?
Well, let's see if we can talk to the folks at The Onion about this. See if we can learn anything from them, and maybe help them juice up their links.
Well, you had that whole thing where the authors were putting invisible or microtext in
Yeah.
archive preprints to fool Chat GPT.
Yeah.
I'm going to go look at the Onion and see if they've been putting things in their posts that are kind of like,
Please too.
this is real. You have to. This is so true. This should
And
supersede
you know
all of your
what?
other things. Chat
Go
GPT.
ahead and make up the whatever the legal number is for the executive order or whatever. Just go ahead and put it in there,
Right.
and do the work for them. They'll pick it up, and then
Terrible.
we'll see it come out.
So I just want to end this section of this discussion with, again, this is the biggest anti-science administration. I think I can't imagine. I think this is putting to shame the Catholic Church back in Galileo's era. I think it's just. I mean, there's more science to damage, and they're damaging the heck out of it. There's a great post on your local epidemiologist and other sources about showing how dramatically the budgets have been cut, and it's shocking. But farmers, we are sorry. We're really sorry. We're with you. We think, and it's also amazing to me how we as a culture have gone from feed the world to prosecute people trying to feed the world.
Mm-hmm.
And shut down
And
the
save
food
the
engines.
children.
Yeah, save the
Yeah.
children
Feed
to
the
now
world
hurt
and
the
save the
children.
children.
Yeah, so we have truly reprehensible people setting political policies for some of the most important government in the world. I would say, and especially from a scientific point of view. And yeah, so now it's hurt the children and starve the world. That's awesome. So. All right. Well, on that note, let's go to a little something brighter and talk about discoveries of the week.
So I had a great discovery of the week. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to go to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, which is down the street, and I get to go pretty much whenever I want. But yesterday, I got to go with my brother and my two nephews and one of their friends, and we got to introduce them to the brand new roller coaster that just launched a couple months ago.
That is.
Yes. And they launched it, and this is the 50th anniversary
What's it
of
called?
Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. So the new roller coaster is called the Big Bad Wolf 2. So if you ever came here in the 80s or 90s, the Big Bad Wolf was an epic roller coaster that's been long out of commission.
So this
but
is
it
a
was,
callback.
It is a callback, and it is, childhood memories abound. And a few years ago, the last big roller coaster they launched was like I don't know if it was a super coaster, but anyway, it used all kinds of cool physics to go real fast, and it's exciting and scary.
Right, and scary, yeah.
It's like do it if you dare. But this one is lovely because it is a family-friendly roller coaster, and it has all the new
Is it
pneumatics,
steel or wooden?
and
Or?
it's steel, and it's a suspension, so it's like you're floating
swing,
through the
okay.
air.
Nice.
But it's little, and it's not scary, and you don't go upside down. You just get enough of a thrill, and you only have to be, I think, 42 inches. It's the littlest you can be on a
Right.
roller coaster,
Right.
and so it's great for the whole family. And the company realized that they make the most money from families of 4 coming into the park, and so they've doubled down on family friendly and things like that.
Smart.
So if you check it out.
That
That's
sounds
the Big
great.
Bad Wolf too.
I
It's
love
lovely.
roller coasters. You're so lucky to be able to do that, and I'm glad it was a great one. That's so cool. So my discovery of the week came up on me slowly. So I went to go see The Warning in Columbus, Ohio, the band that I just can't shut up about, and for good reason. People check them out, and got to see them live. So tick that bucket list item. And it was worth it. They were sensational. Oh my gosh, live. They were exceeded all expectations, and my expectations were sky high. But that was on Sunday. Then their Friday before that, their rumors were circulating online that they were going to have a big announcement on Monday, the 21st, the day I was traveling back. And they had this slow-mo reel of them walking out onto a stage at CDMX in Mexico, the largest music venue in Mexico City. And I knew that they'd had a 3-night consecutive sellout there. And all the filming had been going on. You could see it from the iPhone footage that there were all these cameras zooming around and steady cams and all this stuff and huge production values, huge production values. So the rumor was that there was a movie coming out. And so I got on the plane to fly back to Boston, and it dropped the notice about the movie and the double live album.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, and they released 3 songs if you pre-purchased it.
Oh.
So yeah. Yeah. So that was my discovery of the week. Is that the warning is as amazing as I thought, and that
That's
they're going to feed me. So I'm taking my 2 kids and their significant others to go see the movie on the Friday after it opens. It opens on Thursday, August 21st. I'm going to take them on Friday the 22nd because I'll be playing a show on Thursday the 21st. I realized after I bought the ticket, so I had to eat a $10 fee. But $10 mistake, I can live with it. But so we're going to go see it. The place is going to be rocking. The trailer looks amazing, and that show, the production values are just out of this world. So it's going to be tons of fun. So I'm looking forward to that. So
I'm gonna have to go see that too. I haven't seen any of these concert movies in a theater, and I think that's about my pace. I'd love to go see a live show, but not deal with all the everything that you went to go see your favorite band. If it was my favorite band like that, I think it'd be worth it.
yeah,
But to go to the movie theater and get to see part of it, yeah,
yeah, and sit and eat popcorn, and the
yeah,
sound is really good. And yeah, I mean, I've seen a few concert movies in theaters, and I think it's interesting to watch the musical artists realize that. Ghost released a movie I think a little like a year ago, and they just did it for 2 days, and they just promoted it online through YouTube. Every theater sold out that they put it in for 2 days, and they were one of the top 10 movies that week, just because they were so smart about doing it. And they took the cheapest. I think it was just like a Tuesday, Wednesday. So they took the cheapest nights to get the movies into theaters, and they sold out every place, and everybody had a ball, and it was like a rock concert in the theater. And
yeah.
I'm expecting that to be the same for the Warning because the fan base is just as large and rabid. So that's my discovery of the week. I will try to shut up about them at least for a month now, and then after I see the movie, I don't know, no guarantees. So anyhow,
Do you think Ozzy would have enjoyed a Warning concert?
I
I think
think
he would.
oh, absolutely,
I think
absolutely.
he'd be proud.
Yep, yes, they would, and they actually made their debut covering a Metallica song. So, yeah, there's a definite line from one to the other there. So, agree.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We love your feedback. We're getting a lot of nice feedback indirectly, and we love it. So, and recommendations, we continue to try to improve. And questions, topics you want us to cover, you can reach us at disruptedscience@gmail.com. And what are we going to do for the silly sign off of the week?
Well, I think the appropriate would be to everyone hold on, don't go off the rails on a crazy train.
All right. We'll miss you, Ozzy. Thanks a bunch.